Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to lesson 8 in the series Cero de Conversational. I took a little break after lesson 7, but now I'm back and committed to helping you reach a conversational level as quickly as possible. Now we've covered a lot of material in the past 7 lessons. Some things have been more challenging than others, right? Some things you're like, oh, tengo hambre, I'm hungry. That one was pretty easy. One of the more difficult aspects, I think you would agree, would be those indirect and direct object pronouns. That's the whole me, te, lo, la, le, etc. thing that we've been covering in the last 3 lessons. I know when I use terms like direct and indirect object pronouns, that tends to intimidate people. One of the more difficult aspects about learning Spanish is trying to learn or relearn the English grammatical terms. Some people are like, Paul, why don't you just teach Spanish without any grammatical terms whatsoever? And I'm like, okay. Then it would be very difficult to do some of the formulas and plug and play phrases I do, because it would be like, okay, just drop in a word. Any particular word, Paul? Yeah. But if I told you what kind of word, then I have to use a grammatical term, and you don't like those, so you work it out. As a native English speaker, having to take English grammar in school just wasn't important to me. But being a native English speaker trying to learn Spanish, grammar is very beneficial. So don't let the English grammatical terms scare you. I'm going to be saying them over and over and over, and eventually you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's a direct object pronoun, that's an indirect object pronoun. Psh, this stuff's a piece of cake. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on those direct and indirect object pronouns and how they work together. Now, when I first started learning Spanish, and this whole, you put the le here and the lo, I had trouble with that. And I tried to skip it. I was like, how important could it be? I'm going to kind of work around it. You can't work around this, folks. You absolutely have to learn it if you want to reach a conversational level. If it wasn't super important, I wouldn't be showing it to you. But here's what you have to keep in mind. What I'm teaching you is a pattern, a small pattern that's going to be repeated throughout Spanish. So once you understand the pattern, suddenly all of these doors are going to unlock, and you're going to be like, wow, I can say so many more things with so many more verbs, and I can express myself so much better because I now understand this pattern. So that's what we're going to be working on today with direct and indirect object pronouns and how they work together. Let's go over our direct object pronouns again, also called DOPs. Me, te, lo, la, nos, los, and las. Once you have a certain phrase or construction, you're just basically plugging these in. We covered the verb conocer, which means to know a person, a place, like to be familiar with, right? So we're going to just plug it in. I know him. Lo conozco. I know her. La conozco. I know them. Los conozco. That's going to be a group of all males or a mixed group of males and females. If it's a group of all females, las conozco. I know them. Do you know us? Nos conoces? Not that tough, right? Plug and play. Let's take a look at our indirect object pronouns, our IOPs, and they're basically the same except for the lo and la have been replaced by le and los and las with les. So we have me, te, le, nos, les. These IOPs are best described as something happening to someone or something. Think of it as to me, to you, to her. Sometimes that helps you actually wrap your head around it better. We saw these IOPs or indirect object pronouns used with the verb gustar, which means to be pleasing to, because Spanish doesn't have a word for to like we do in English. You can't say, I like something in Spanish. You say that something is pleasing to you or something is pleasing to the other person. That's why we're using our indirect object pronouns, right? The to someone. Me gustan las fresas. I like strawberries, but literally, strawberries are pleasing to me. A Maria le gustan las fresas. To Maria, the strawberries are pleasing. That little le stays in there because Spanish likes redundant pronouns, right? We talked about that, especially with the le. That's why you'll often hear, hey, there's another one of those redundant le's. So that's a little refresher of your direct object pronouns, your DOPs, your indirect object pronouns, your IOPs, and today we're going to show you how to put them together in the same sentence. But in order to practice this, we're going to be giving you another new mega verb, and it is dar, dar, and it means to give. You're going to be using this one a lot in your Spanish, and not just for to give. It's also used in dozens of expressions and verb phrases like dar a luz, to give birth, but literally to give to light. There are a ton of those, and I talk about them in other videos. But for today, we're just going to be focusing on dar, because this is a great verb to show you the pattern on how DOPs and IOPs work together. And then you can repeat this pattern, right? You get this thing down, and you're going to be super sharp in Spanish. Don't worry, all right? So today we want you to translate sentences like these. Did you give her the book? Yes, I gave it to her. One thing you may have noticed right away about those two English sentences is that they are in the past tense. We often use to give in English this way, in the past tense. In the present tense, it's, well, just more limiting. It sounds odd sometimes, right? Do you give Maria the book? Yes, I give it to her. We sound like cavemen, right? So we talk about this one a lot in the past tense. So we're going to learn how to conjugate this one in the past tense first. And here are your conjugations. Di, diste, dio, dimos, dieron. Conjugations are always presented in this order, so one of the easiest way to remember them is like that. Just think di, diste, dio, dimos, dieron. Got it. Let's talk about the past tense just for a moment. Spanish actually has two forms of the past tense, the preterite and the imperfect, and they're not interchangeable. The one we're using today is in the preterite. The preterite is used for completed actions in the past. I'll be talking more about the imperfect and the preterite and how they work together in future lessons. So let's take a look at this sentence. I gave the book to Maria. We would translate that as yo le di el libro a Maria. Now we could drop the yo if it's clear from the verb or the context who the subject is. Spanish often drops the subject. So you may hear le di el libro a Maria, right? Either one. But I'm going to leave the yo in there in parentheses just so you can see how the sentence is structured. So let's break this down. First thing is we come to that le. What is that? Indirect object pronoun. Because we're giving the book to Maria. That's how we know it's going to be le, right? We're giving it to her. So that's stuck there. So then we have di, our conjugated verb, el libro, what we're giving, and then a Maria. So we have the le and a Maria. Why are they both there? Spanish loves their redundant pronouns. That's that redundant le. See what I mean about patterns? Patterns. Why don't you try one? Did you give the book to Juan? Now remember, to make something a question in Spanish, we're just going to use an upside down question mark at the beginning and a regular question mark at the end, and we're going to change our inflection. It's not going to change a lot unless we're popping in question words. So in this one, it's going to look very similar even if it wasn't a question. You think you got it? Did you give the book to Juan? ¿Le diste el libro a Juan? Did you get that? Did you leave in the le? If you did, you're already nailing this thing. If not, don't worry, you'll get it before the end. Let's tweak that one just a little bit. Did you give the book to him? ¿Le diste el libro? Did you get it? All you did was drop who you're giving it to, right? We know from context that the le is to him. These types of sentences are much easier to use when we're just using me, te, or nos, because we don't have to really specify like a mí, a ti, a nosotros, because it's so clear, right? Unlike le or les that can really refer to anyone, these are simple. So try this one. Did you give me the book? ¿Me diste el libro? Yes, I gave you the book. Sí, te di el libro. Did you get those? Are you starting to see the pattern? It's just plug and play, right? Not too hard. I should have said this earlier, but when I went through those verb conjugations, it does help to like get a screenshot or write them down or something so you can do the exercises in a particular lesson. Now, by lesson 8 of this, you may have noticed that pattern, but hey, like I said, I have taken a little time off, so who knows when the last time you actually took a lesson here. All right, so let's move on. So when using Mayte Nose, it is always clear who we're talking about. It's super simple. I don't think you're gonna have too much trouble with those. So let's get back to the one that's gonna give you the most trouble, and that's gonna be the constructions with either le or les. Let's talk about les in the plural, okay? Les diste la información. Did you give them the information? You may have noticed información is gonna be one of your TION, CION cognate tricks. You didn't think we were done with those, did you? So take a look at that sentence. What if we wanna say, did you give the information to the men? Think you can add that? You should get something like this. Les diste la información a los hombres. You're just popping it in, and you can pop in anything. Les diste la información a las mujeres. Did you give the information to the women? Les diste la información a los vecinos. Did you give the information to the neighbors? Just pop in whatever you like. So how you doing so far? You hanging in there? Good. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and learn how to make sentences like these. I gave it to him. I gave it to her. In other words, we took that other object, the book or whatever it is we're talking about, and we substituted a direct object pronoun for it, right? So book would normally be lo, meaning it, because it's el libro, so lo. And we have to put all this together with our indirect object pronouns and our direct object pronouns so we can do sentences like that. This can get a bit more complicated and it's odd for English speakers, so I found the easiest way to teach it is to kind of walk you through it step by step. So come along with me now. Let's start with this sentence. I gave the book to Juan. Le di el libro a Juan. That one's familiar, right? Now we want to substitute the book with a direct object pronoun, so it's going to be lo, right? We know that these are going to go before dar, but you got to ask yourself, is there some order here? Yes. The indirect object pronoun is going to go first, and then the direct object pronoun. So if we do that, we get le, right, our indirect object pronoun. We plug in lo for the book, di, our verb, and then a Juan, right? It looks something like this, but we're not done. You see that le lo there? It's like le lo di a Juan. And I know all Spanish probably sounds strange to you, but that sounds really awkward, okay? So Spanish changes it a bit. When you have le in front of any kind of DOP, direct object pronoun, it's going to change into a se. So I gave it to Juan, and it being the book, right? El libro would become se lo di a Juan. Se lo di a Juan. Now let's see if you're starting to recognize the pattern. Take a look at the sentence we just made. Let's say I want to change it to say, I gave it to him. You think you can do that? Se lo di. That's it, right? We're dropping the a Juan, just like we did before. In that case, it's all about context, right? Now let's say there's two people standing there, a male and a female, and you want to be specific who you're talking about, which one you're talking about. You could add their names, or a ella to her, or a él to him. You only have to do that if it's not clear who you're talking about. So if the person's like, ¿Le diste la carta a María? Did you give Maria the letter? Sí, se la di. Yes, I gave it to her. Let's talk about our friends Mayte Nose and how they fit into all this. And let's still talk about la carta, the letter. You gave it to me. Me la diste. I gave it to you, the informal you. Te la di. So those are still going to be super easy, even in this construction. You're not having to change anything into a say or anything. Just drop in your Mayte or nos, piece of cake. Keep it simple, right? All right, folks, it's time for you to do some of these on your own. Take your time with these. Feel free to pause the video and write them down. I'm going to give you the English. I'm going to be pausing a few seconds before giving you the answer in Spanish. Same drill. You should be used to it. I gave Maria the book. Le di el libro a María. I gave her the book. Le di el libro. I gave it to her. It is the book. Se lo di. Nice and short, right? Se lo di. 3 words. I gave Juan the keys, and keys are las llaves. Le di las llaves a Juan. I gave him the keys. Le di las llaves. I gave them to him, and when I'm saying them, I'm referring to the keys. Se las di. Se las di. Juan gave me the keys. Juan me dio las llaves. Juan gave them to me. Juan me las dio. Did you give Juan the information? ¿Le diste la información a Juan? Yes, I gave it to him. Sí, se la di. If you'd like to see a couple other videos about this topic, I'll put links to a couple of them I did recently in the description section of this video. Some of the feedback I received from the first 7 lessons of the series was that the lessons were just too long. And people were like, Paul, can you just keep them to like 10 minutes or so? And when I decided to resume the series, I was thinking, yeah, maybe I can do that. Well, I failed miserably in this video. So I just want to tell you that the length of the videos is really going to depend on the topic I'm covering in that day. And this one was a tough one, so it's a longer video. Some of the other ones will be shorter. We'll have to see how it goes. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. Tell your friends about it. Share the playlist. Just helps me out. And until next time, hasta luego.